Aspire to a clean career, leaving no shame for descendants. Hello everyone. Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Case Stories, Cases Judged by Bao Gong. Today, I'm going to bring you a story called Red Ivory Ball. Once upon a time, there was a wealthy family in the capital, with the family head named Pan Yuanliu. The Pan family had held government positions for generations. Pan Yuanliu had a son named Pan Shou, the eighth in his family, who was young, handsome, and carried himself with grace. One year, just before the Qingming festival, the Pan family began preparing for the ancestral rites. The servants arranged offerings at the ancestral graves and hung spirit money next to the tombstones. The Pan family also cherished a pair of precious red ivory balls, which had been gifted to their ancestors by Emperor Zhenzong. On the day of the Qingming festival, while the elders of the Pan family went to the ancestral graves for the rites, Pan Shou did not join them. Instead, he wore the red ivory balls and wandered around outside. As he passed by the residence of the Liu family across the street, he noticed that the grand red door of the Liu mansion was open, and the curtains hung halfway down. Behind the curtain, he glimpsed a young woman with bound feet, dressed in a red skirt. This was Liu Huaxiu, the daughter of the Liu family's head, who had just turned 16 that year. Huaxiu was very beautiful, and Pan Shou, catching a faint glimpse of her through the curtain, was immediately smitten. He wanted to approach her but was too shy and unsure of how to begin a conversation. Just then, a frivolous youth named Wang Gui saw Pan Shou awkwardly standing at the Liu family's door and came forward to ask, "Young man, are you waiting here for something?" Pan Shou didn't conceal his thoughts and told Wang Gui about his feelings. Wang Gui laughed and said, "If you want to meet that young lady from the Liu family, what's the difficulty? Let me help you with a plan. You can take the red ivory ball you're wearing and play with it, pretending to accidentally toss it into the Liu family's doorway. Then, you can rush in to retrieve the ball, lift the curtain in the process, and that way, you'll get a good look at the lady." Pan Shou followed Wang Gui's advice, and as planned, he threw the ball into the Liu family's doorway. Sure enough, he saw the young lady Huaxiu behind the curtain, and he politely stepped forward to greet her. Huaxiu asked Pan Shou, "Young man, why have you come here?" Pan Shou replied, "I was playing outside just now and accidentally lost one of my red ivory balls. I had to come in to retrieve it and unintentionally disturbed you. I hope you won't hold it against me." Huaxiu, seeing that Pan Shou was exceptionally handsome, began to feel affection for him and smiled, saying, "Today, both my parents have gone out for a stroll, and meeting you here must be fate. Why don't you come inside for a while, and we can share a drink and chat?" Pan Shou, hearing this, felt hesitant but mostly fearful, so he didn't respond. Seeing his reluctance, Huaxiu grabbed Pan Shou's clothes and said, "If you don't agree, I'll report you to the authorities and have the magistrate charge you with trespassing." Pan Shou, left with no choice, agreed to her request. The two sat facing each other in Huaxiu's boudoir, sharing drinks, and gradually their feelings for each other deepened. Huaxiu asked, "Young man, how old are you?" Pan Xiu humbly replied, "I have lived through 19 spring seasons." Huaxiu then asked, "Have you ever taken a wife?" Pan Xiu responded, "I have not yet married." Huaxiu continued, "I have also never been married. If you do not find my behavior too forward, would be willing to offer myself to you." Pan Xiu, surprised by her words, replied, "You have already shown me such generous hospitality, which is proof enough of your kindness toward me. But now you propose such a thing, and if your parents were to find out, I would certainly be unable to escape punishment." Huaxiu reassured him, saying, "My chamber is very private, and even my parents wouldn't know about what happens between us. You needn't worry too much." Seeing Huaxiu's determination already smitten by her, Pan Xiu gave in, and the two shared a night together, becoming lovers without official titles. Afterward, Pan Xiu got up, tidied his clothes, and prepared to leave. Huaxiu stopped him and said, "There's something else I wish to tell you. Today, we were fortunate enough to enjoy each other's company. I have never married, and you currently have no wife. Why don't we bring in a matchmaker and become legitimate husband and wife?" Pan Xiu immediately agreed, and the two swore to each other under heaven, vowing never to abandon one another. After returning home, Pan Xiu was consumed with thoughts of Huaxiu. He became infatuated, unable to focus on anything else, and soon grew pale and haggard. His parents, noticing his condition, repeatedly asked him what was wrong. Left with no choice, Pan Xiu confessed his love for the Liu family's daughter. Once his parents understood his feelings, they immediately sent a matchmaker to discuss the marriage with Huaxiu's family. The head of the Liu family told the matchmaker, "I have no sons, only my daughter Huaxiu. My wife and I cannot bear to let her leave us for marriage. If possible, we hope Pan Xiu can marry into the Liu family instead." The matchmaker returned and relayed this to Pan Yuanliu, who thought it over carefully. He suspected that since the Liu family was unwilling to marry off their daughter, they might be trying to politely decline the marriage proposal, as the Pan family would never agree to such an arrangement. So, he said to Pan Xiu, "Since the Liu family is unwilling to unite with the Pan family in marriage, there are still many other wealthy families in the capital. You won't have trouble finding a good wife, and I'll arrange for you to marry someone even better." Pan Xiu listened quietly, without arguing, and let the matter drop. In the end, under his parents' arrangement, he married the daughter of the Zhao family, and his relationship with Huaxiu came to an abrupt end. On the day of Pan Xiu's wedding, the Pan household was filled with joy. The doors were bustling with guests, and the sound of music filled the air. On that very day, Huaxiu could only stand outside and watch. She asked her maid, "Why is the Pan family so lively today?" The maid replied, "The young man of the Pan family is marrying the daughter of the Zhao family today. It's their wedding day." Upon hearing this, Huaxiu recalled the past, and tears flowed from her eyes like rain. She regretted not expressing her feelings to her parents, and overwhelmed by sorrow, she became speechless, suffocating from the emotions she held inside. Before long, she passed away. Her parents grieved deeply, but they had no idea why she died so suddenly. In the end, they had no choice but to order the servants, Wang Wen and Lishan, to bury her outside the southern gate. After Huaxiu was buried, Lishan returned home but couldn't stop thinking about her beautiful appearance. He felt a strong reluctance in his heart and said to his parents, "I have some business to attend to tonight." His parents, not suspecting anything, agreed to let him go out. In the dead of night, under the bright moonlight, Lishan made his way to the cemetery and dug open Huaxiu's grave. When he opened the coffin, he saw that Huaxiu's beauty had remained untouched, as if she were still alive. Lishan lamented, "Such a beautiful woman, it's such a pity. Even though she's now dead, would gladly lie beside her. If I could fulfill this wish, I would die without regret." With this thought, Lishan lifted Huaxiu's clothes and spent the night with her in the grave. Before dawn, Huaxiu's body unexpectedly moved slightly, and then she slowly opened her eyes. Before long, she began to speak. Huaxiu asked, "Who is bold enough to sleep beside me?" Startled, Lishan replied, "I am your family's servant, Lishan. My master had me bury you here, but I couldn't bear the thought of your death, so I came tonight to open the coffin and look at you. To my surprise, you've come back to life. What incredible luck." By this time, Huaxiu had regained her senses and suddenly remembered what had happened at home a few days ago. She told Lishan, "I experienced a false death due to anger and frustration because Pan Xiu broke his vow to me. Since today I've been given a second chance at life, and by fate, you came and opened my grave, bringing me back to life. I don't know how to repay you for this kindness. I no longer wish to return to my family. I hope I can marry you and become your wife. All the clothes and jewelry in the coffin are yours to keep as well." Lishan was naturally overjoyed. He reburied the grave, and the two returned to his home together. Before dawn, they had already arrived at Lishan's house. Huaxiu knocked on the door, and Lishan's mother opened it. She was surprised to see her son returning with a woman and asked what was going on. Lishan told his mother, "This woman used to work in a brothel, and I've known her for years. Now, she's willing to leave that life behind and become my wife. Today, I've brought her home to meet you and father." Lishan's mother believed his story and agreed to let them marry. After their marriage, the couple lived happily together. Since the Li family lived in a remote area, Huaxiu rarely went out, and no one knew that Lishan's wife was actually Huaxiu. Lishan sold the clothing and jewelry Huaxiu had been buried with, and the family became quite wealthy. On a winter night, more than 6 months later, a fire broke out at the neighbor's house, spreading to Lishan's home. In a panic, Huaxiu fled wearing only a thin garment, and in the chaos, she became separated from Lishan. Penniless and wandering through the cold, windy streets, she was alone, helpless, and tearful. Eventually, she recognized her own family's house and hurried to knock on the door of the Liu family. Someone inside called out, "Who's knocking?" Huaxiu replied, It's me, Huaxiu. I've returned to see my parents. The person inside was shocked and said, Miss Huaxiu has been dead for half a year. How could you still be knocking on our door? You must be a ghost. Tomorrow, I'll inform your parents, and they'll burn some money and clothes for you in the underworld. You should leave now. Despite Huaxiu's protests and explanations, no one dared open the door, convinced that she was a spirit. Unable to see her parents, Huaxiu, feeling cold, weak, and abandoned, wept bitterly, having nowhere else to go. Suddenly, she noticed that the Pan family's residence was brightly lit, as though a banquet was still underway. She went over to knock on the door of the Pan family's home. The gatekeeper asked in surprise, "Who's knocking at this hour?" Huaxiu responded, "Please tell Pan Xiu that I am Huaxiu from the Liu family. We met because of the red ivory ball. I have an urgent matter and need his help tonight." The gatekeeper went to report this to Pan Xiu. Puzzled, Pan Xiu thought it over, remembering that the Huaxiu from the Liu family had died 6 months ago. Could it be her wandering ghost at his door? Worried, he called for his servant Li Ji to light a lamp and prepare some spirit money and clothes to burn for Huaxiu's soul. However, Pan Xiu was also frightened, so he took up a sword and cautiously opened the door, only to find that it was indeed Huaxiu standing there, her face streaming with tears, pleading for mercy. Pan Xiu said to her, "Your family is wealthy. If you go back and ask for incense and offerings, your parents will surely give you plenty. Why are you still clinging to me?" After saying this, he burned the spirit money in front of her and hurriedly ordered Li Ji to shut the door. Despite this, Huaxiu continued to cry out her grievances from outside the door, refusing to leave. She wailed, "You heartless man, how can you treat me this way even now?" Desperate and heartbroken, Huaxiu remained outside, but Pan Xiu, both angry and terrified, was convinced she was a ghost. Overcome by fear, he stormed outside and, in a panic, slashed wildly at Huaxiu with his sword before slamming the door shut and going back to bed. As dawn approached, a street patrol constable shouted loudly outside the Pan residence, "Why is there a woman here? She's covered in knife wounds. How cruel." The constable immediately reported the case to the local authorities. News quickly spread throughout the city, shocking the public, who began to discuss the incident in disbelief. The head of the Liu family heard about the matter and was filled with doubt. That night, he dreamt of his daughter, Huaxiu, who appeared before him and said, "I was killed by Pan Xiu. Please, father, seek justice for me." After saying this, Huaxiu wiped away her tears and left. Upon waking, the Liu family head recounted the dream to his wife, saying, "Our Huaxiu must have been wronged. We should exhume her body and investigate further." The next morning, they dug up Huaxiu's grave and discovered that her body was missing. They immediately reported this to Judge Bao. Judge Bao quickly sent constables to arrest Pan Xiu, accusing him of grave robbing and murdering Huaxiu. Pan Xiu, unaware of the entire matter, was at a loss for how to defend himself. During a detailed interrogation, he repeatedly claimed that he had killed out of fear, believing Huaxiu to be a ghost. Judge Bao, still uncertain, ordered Pan Xiu to be detained in prison. He then issued a public notice, declaring that Pan Xiu had been arrested for Huaxiu's murder but had not yet confessed to his crime. Judge Bao also announced a reward of 1,000 silver coins to anyone who could provide information regarding Huaxiu's exhumation and revival. Upon seeing the notice, Lishan came forward to the court, explaining in detail how Huaxiu had been brought back to life. Judge Bao ruled that although Lishan was not guilty of grave robbing, his actions had directly led to Pan Xiu's accidental killing of Huaxiu. As a result, Lishan was sentenced to death according to the law, while Pan Xiu was absolved of any charges. However, in the days that followed, Pan Xiu, filled with regret and guilt for accidentally killing Huaxiu, eventually fell into deep depression and died, a karmic retribution for his unintended crime. Alright. Today's case story, Red Ivory Ball, concludes here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave your comments and share with others. See you again in the next issue.